make it on time, you'll have to say you got it. Otherwise, you push leave the meeting and you'll do exactly that. So, um, welcome everybody. My name is Greg Goodland. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for the Rio Grande National Forest, and I'm really happy you're all here. I'd sure like to hustle into this because Matt's a returning guest and he's got a lot going for us. So, again, on behalf of the Rio Grande National Forest, welcome. And I'd like to introduce Kelly DeFi with the San Juan Mountains Association, our host partner tonight. And she's going to go through a couple of little housekeeping items for us.
All right, everybody. It's just pretty much typical. We ask everybody to stay on mute unless you're asking a question. You can put your question in the chat bar or in the chat, in the meeting chat. It's the speech bubble down there at the bottom. And there's also a reactions button. You can raise your hand there. You can applaud or smiley face or whatever you'd like to do down there. We have a door prize for this month. We've got a deck of cards that says "Don't freeze out there," and all the cards have different little things about staying warm or cold-related illnesses and injuries, little advice and things, and then a bookmark and a water bottle from SJMA. So if you want to be put into the drawing for the door prize, put your name in the Forest Specialist series. If you'd like to be put on the email list for upcoming Forest Specialist series events, go ahead and give me a personal, you can send me a personal chat message by clicking on the everyone arrow and give me your email address, and I'll get you on an email list for upcoming events. I believe that's all we've got going on for housekeeping. What do you think, Greg? We're ready to go?
Yeah, thank you. I forgot about the mute button there, Kelly.
Oh,
I sure appreciate it. And I also wanted to, before we get started, get it already on your radar. Next month, we are going to be talking about culturally modified trees with one of our forest archaeologists, Marcy Reiser, who presented on that a couple of years ago. It was an amazing session. So again, that's about a month from now in February. And without holding back any longer, I'd like to introduce to you Matt Huber from the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. And he's our local avalanche forecaster. And welcome back, Matt. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, like Greg said, I work for the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. I did this, I think this is the third time I've done one of these for the Forest Speakers series. And really with the recent storm cycle and avalanche cycle that we've had, I've done a few of these types of talks since then, since the past week or so, and a lot of the questions are coming up towards the highways. The highway hits, the avalanches that have been hitting the roads, especially up near Bertha, that made the road or made the news. So to start this off, I'm going to start with a little bit of just history about our program, and the partnership between CAIC, the Avalanche Information Center, and the and CDOT, and then also with the Forest Service, because locally our main highways, our main thoroughfares cut right through the heart of the Rio Grande and the San Juan National Forests. So I guess, can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Matt.
Thanks, appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to start sharing a screen here. And this is the only time during my season that I use Zoom meetings, and everything else is on Google Meets. So forgive my cumbersome ways here. And you can probably hear my Google Google Meets going off in the background. We have a 1 o'clock forecast discussion, and then we start putting products out 3 to 5 in the afternoon so that people can get ready for their trips the next day. So kind of monitoring that during this discussion. So locally, if you're familiar with Wolf Creek Pass, which I'm assuming everybody is, this is a snow shed. All these snow sheds were built in a sort of a reaction to either some sort of fatality or some sort of incident. This picture was taken last year at the end of February, I believe. And when we hit the snow shed, basically same avalanche hit on New Year's Day on 2022. And then the last time so we've had 2 repeats, and then the previous last hit over the snow shed was in 2016. So we're getting more and more frequent hits across the snow shed. That's, I think a lot of that's due to more consistent control work. These were all triggered with explosives up along a ridge line up above there. But we have a very active program across Wolf Creek Pass. Our hazard index on Wolf Creek Pass is really high and really significant just because of the amount of people that we see go across that path. So we're next to I-70. I-70 takes a priority in the state, and Wolf Creek Pass takes a second priority as far as keeping it open. So there's a lot of eyes and a lot of effort to keep that open. You can see that in the quality of plows and effort and money between CDOT, Colorado State Patrol, and the Avalanche Center to keep that road open. As much as we flack as we get for closing it for a few days a season, there's a whole lot of effort from those plows that keep that thing open. So kudos to those guys. Back in the day, we used to get road hits. The railroads used to get smoked all the time, and it was basically just kind of everybody for themselves. You'd have local citizens getting out there and digging people out. The I-70 corridor. This is 10 Mile Canyon. You can see the rotors where the rotor dug through or tried to dig through the avalanche debris going through 10 Mile. I'm not going to show you the pictures of digging cars out of 10 Mile from the 2019 avalanche cycle, but we still have those type of avalanches hitting the road, hopefully when it's closed, but we still have incidents hitting the highway. And again, like what we saw last week and the week before up on Berthoud, along I-70 and 10 Mile, we had open roads with avalanches on them, and that's really why we have a completely different side of the Avalanche Information Center that's dedicated only to forecasting for the highways, which is what I do. I'm completely dedicated to Wolf Creek Pass, Slumgullion, and Cumber-Slamanga. And Cumber-Slamanga, Slumgullion take up about maybe 2% of my time total, where Wolf Creek takes up the rest of it. So, unfortunately, we did have some fatalities along the highways early on before we really started having a forecasting program. Again, there's a tunnel, there's a snow shed built in a reaction to all of these fatalities. Some of the programs started with Monty Atwater back in the late 40s, early 50s, who was forecasting or developing forecasting techniques and mitigation techniques from his time in the 10th Mountain Division, bringing them back to Little Cottonwood and Big Cottonwood over on the Wasatch. And we brought them over here to start looking at some of our problem areas. Again, 10 Mile and the I-70 corridor was some of the first ones we started using artillery on. Looking at some of the smaller guns from back in the day. Monty was into the recoilless, the 75 millimeter recoilless. We don't use those anymore. And after this incident, we really started knocking up our mitigation program. And unfortunately, the video of this we were working on before we opened the waiting room up, we can't get the video of the avalanche. But Walt Disney had a photographer and a film crew out, and we call it's the Disney Pass up on Berthoud, or Disney Path on Berthoud Pass. They were told by everyone that there's no way it would hit the highway. So the film crew set up shop right in the avalanche path itself, and waited for the shot, and avalanche rolled over them, and killed both of the photographer and a highway worker. Unfortunately, that's the remnants of the debris. Unfortunately, we were able to recover the video, but it won't play on this format. So it survived a massive avalanche, but we can't seem to get it to play on this format. But you can see some of the debris, what happened to the film crews, the highway workers that were there. These were all pictures from the deposition. And then this is before we really had a partnership with the CAIC and the CDOT. After Eddie was killed over on Red Mountain in East Riverside, CDOT really started focusing on worker safety, and hired my predecessor, Mark Mueller. Some of you may know him. He still lives over in Pagosa. He forecasted for Wolf Creek Pass until 2019, when I took over. And the CAIC and CDOT really started to put together travel management plans along the I-70 corridor and Wolf Creek Pass, and it's spread out now to include just about any avalanche or any highway that has avalanche paths on it, anywhere from the Grand Mesa to McClure Pass, Berthoud, all of anything that has avalanche hazard on it has a forecaster dedicated to it. So again, there's 9 of us, 9 highway forecasters that are spread across the state, and that's really all we do. So you won't see our products out in the CIC world. Ours are written specifically to highway workers and to the Colorado State Patrol in lingo that's easy to understand, and doesn't dive too deeply into what avalanche problems are. It's say, hey, we're going to close at a certain time, we have significant avalanche hazard, or we don't have avalanche hazard, and keep doing what you're doing. And it's a sliding scale that basically throughout the winter we have those guys wearing gear all the time. They're avalanche transceivers, beacons, shovels. The highway forecasters are in constant communication with CDOT and the plow drivers, not necessarily even just the overhead from CDOT. I turned my radio off so you guys didn't have to listen to the plows commenting on bad drivers through the night while we're doing this talk. But we talk constantly on what they're seeing on different paths and what on different passes. And then we also develop different rescue procedures for those guys too. how to react and what to carry and what to bring with them, and what to keep with them all the time. So that's we have tons of tools now that back in the day they really didn't. We have on Wolf Creek Pass we have a 105 millimeter howitzer that we use for mitigation. We have it's called a Gazex, which is, if you remember the show Mork and Mindy, it looks like the egg that Robin Williams steps out of at the very beginning of that show. It's exactly like that, and there's two of those along in the paths up above the lowest hairpin turn over on the Pagosa spot side, and we can detonate those from down on the road. And basically my technique and is just to keep the volume down in the avalanche paths, so that the less volume you have, the less opportunity you have for large avalanches to hit the highway and either hurt somebody or close the highway down for long periods of time. And avalanche cycles like last year, where we were able to keep up with them for the majority of the season, but we finally reached that climax at the end of the season around March 23rd or so, where we ended up with where we just had to close down. And it was not necessarily just for avalanche hazard that we closed; it's for visibility. That particular cycle, from the lowest runaway ramp on the Pagosa side to just about a mile away from the top, we had every avalanche path on that side of the highway ran, and so there's about 15 to 20 feet of snow on the center line from debris for about that whole chunk of ground, so about 7 miles worth. So they need that time to clean the path up and the pass up. We also have used closure as mitigation too. If we just can't keep up with it, we'll close it down until we can shoot. We do have limited visibility with the 105. The military grants us a variance where we can shoot that 105 in the dark, and we're the only place in the country that has that. And it's, again, because of the priority that the CDOT and the state puts on keeping the southernmost route open. So we have a lot of pressure to keep that road open. And that there's a gun shed that gives us the ability to keep that gun in place and not have to sight it in, and gives us that limited visibility variance. I'm going to stop there. And again, just since it's that was more highway discussion than we've had in years past about how we forecast for the highways, why we forecast for the highways, since the birth of cars involved. So I'll open it up for some questions before we move on to more know before you go type of stuff. So did all that make sense? Okay.
I'll jump on and say, yes, it made sense to me. And I appreciated that history. I mean, as I've mentioned, I worked for CDOT up on Loving Pass for, 7 or 8 winters. And yeah, truly amazing. I mean, I understand why we do that. I worked in some of those places, like you said, where you turn your back on it and let it be Mother Nature's whim for a couple of weeks sometimes.
Yeah.
Because if the crazy plow drivers like me don't want to be up there, I'm sure nobody else does either.
No, and man, I can't say enough about the plow drivers on Wolf Creek. That road's as good as it gets for as much. We picked up close to 5 inches of water out of this last storm, and that's kind of a standard storm for Wolf Creek. It's not that big of a deal, where the rest of the state's pretty much shut down. And so the plow drivers in this part of the world are as good as it gets, keeping that thing open. So
Yeah, I'd echo that. Thanks, Matt.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna breeze through this as a fair bit as well, because we can get into the science of how avalanches form, why avalanches form, but or why avalanches happen. But in the end, it's probably not going to help you guys be safer in the mountains, be safer in your travels in the woods, and in snow covered hills. So I've narrowed it down to a few things that if you can remember, these are the takeaway points from just about every discussion I've ever had or put on for folks. And it starts off with Colorado's its snowpack and its climate and its population mixed. We have the largest number of fatalities by double of anywhere in the country. So we have a really weak snowpack here. Fortunately, Colorado, or excuse me, Wolf Creek Pass has the generally stronger snowpack than the rest of the state does, but we still have a weak snowpack compared to the rest of the country and the rest of the world. Now we dump millions of people on top of avalanche terrain with ski areas and high traffic passes, giving them super good access to backcountry skiing outside the ski areas and off of the highways. And you mix that with a really weak snowpack, and you have this number that's almost double than anywhere else in the country. Here's another, and Alberta's cousin. This is another one that ran over the shed. I think this was from the 2022 cycle, but you can see this slab that is formed on top of this really weak snow, and that's pretty typical of Colorado snowpack. It's fairly thin, it's fairly weak. It's really weak when it's this thin. And looking back, this crown here is about 2 meters deep, and and that for the state of Colorado, that's pretty thin or pretty deep. When you're talking about going over to Snoqualmie or the Sierras, that's still a really shallow snowpack. 2 meters versus 10 meters. So again, the reason we have so many fatalities is this cold, thin, weak snowpack, and we put a lot of people within. It only takes you about half an hour to skin up to this particular path from the top of the pass. So really easy access, and a really weak snowpack. So let's see, this cycle here was a record for Wolf Creek Pass, and we've been keeping pretty heavy records on this site that I use for the past 30 years. And this was the most snow recorded in a 10-day period, 11-day period ever. So when you have this really weak snowpack, really weak, thin, cold snowpack, and then you put this massive 12 feet of snow. I think we measured 12 feet and 12 inches of water in a 10-day period. Everything's going to break loose, and you can see what was in this crown here. I don't know if you can see my crown or my cursor or not, but in this crown, you can see a layer in there in that snowpack, and that was from that early season snow. That I don't know, basal layer was probably 30-40 centimeters deep, and it sat there from October until about the Christmas holiday. And luckily it did start snowing, because Davey was, there was zero snow on the ski area, but it started snowing for Davey for the holidays, and we got 12 feet in 10 days. but we also had this massive natural avalanche cycle. And you can see that really weak snow early in the season breaking all the way to the ground. So with that, the one thing that is always one of the takeaway points is a cold thin snowpack is a really weak snowpack. You need a slab on top of it. If you want to learn why a cold thin snowpack is so weak, then we can talk about that in questions. But typically, think of a cold thin snowpack as weak. So then next thing I want to bring up is where do avalanches occur? It doesn't have to be on avalanche paths called the Battleship or the Widowmaker. It doesn't have the Eagle. It can be these small little cut bank slides. It can be roof avalanches. Every year we have fatalities with roof avalanches. We had one in Crete in 2019, I think. We had two last season. And they're heartbreaking because nobody really realizes that they're in that danger zone. So everybody waits to go out and shovel until it's nice and sunny and starts warming up, and then goes in and start shoveling underneath their really steep pitched roof, and it slides. And it doesn't take a lot to bury somebody or break their neck. It really doesn't. So just be aware when you're shoveling your roofs. Also, and I can't see what the crowd looks like in here, but be aware when you're out walking your dogs during big storm cycles. It doesn't take much to bury somebody, especially when you're just on foot. I've by far dug out more people from small cut bank creeks type of avalanches than I have of big avalanche paths with multiple start zones and 3,000 vertical foot drops. Those are the ones that get the attention in the news, but the ones that really kill people and sneak up on people are the roof avalanches and out walking your dog on a road and the cut bank slides on you. So what you need for an avalanche is basically 30 to 45 degrees. Below 30 degrees, it's just really not steep enough, and above 45 degrees, it's too steep. It's always trundling snow off of the top of it. So this red zone here, 30 to 45 degrees, 37 being the median. Anytime you're in that terrain on snow covered hills, be aware. And then not only be aware if you're on that slope, but be aware if you're underneath large stars like this. Be aware if you're on a gentler slope over to the lookers right on this, the locally connected gentler terrain. Be aware if you're over in there that you might be, if you're in a really sensitive snowpack, even though you might be on a shallower pitch, the start zone might trigger. If you trigger an avalanche, it might reach over into the little gentler terrain. So be really aware of what terrain is connected to you and where you're at and what's above you. When you hear, or if you start to see things in our avalanche forecast, our backcountry avalanche forecast that say, watch out on the valley floors, the bottom of the valley floors. If you're walking your dog in up towards Big Meadows or Tucker, watching out for large paths coming down, you're probably going to be in a high hazard day, and it's probably best just to stay out of the mountains at that point. And I'll get a little bit more into the danger scale here, but I'm going to back up one. Again, the higher the avalanche danger goes, the less terrain is going to be available to play with safely. Wolf Creek Pass is a kind of an anomaly because you can play, you can ski or snowmobile, you can backcountry ski, you can back and ride your sled in the safest terrain without being connected to steep terrain. The problem is you really have to pay attention to where you are and what terrain you're connected to, because you can, on Wolf Creek Pass, on Lobo, you can get into terrain that is gentle, but it might have something hanging above you if you aren't paying attention. So when we start talking about the things you can do to avoid avalanche, it's really important just to know what pitch you're on. And all your phones, everybody's phones has a inclinometer. Any questions, just pull out your phone and it'll have it in there. So that's the other, or one of the other things that are the takeaway points is, if you're in high hazard days, just play, go Nordic skiing somewhere without on slopes that you're on, similar slopes to what you're playing on. You're likely going to see an avalanche on the slope that you're heading to, that you're going to play on. What that means is, if you're coming up on this slope right here and you see this avalanche, it's probably not the best idea to come over to the looker's left and go ski that slope, even though you see some tracks down it. It's very likely you're gonna, if you see this the main avalanche, you're probably going to see another avalanche happen as well. You can see on this particular one, the upper avalanche triggered, and then it looks like the tracks went on down and they triggered another one, and basically the same slope, just lower down the slope, just lower down on the hill. So if you see an avalanche, it's probably going to avalanche again if you jump on a similar slope, similar aspect, similar pitch, and similar elevation. So A1A sign of increasing avalanche danger and unstable snowpack is that you see avalanches. Another really good indicator of an unstable snowpack is shooting cracks. And again, I can't really see who's on this. So this is on a steep slope, and you're walking along, you're either snowshoeing, skiing, sledding, and this crack shoots out in front of you. That's the weak layer failing, and the slope would have avalanched had it had enough pitch to it, had it been steep enough. There just wasn't enough slab weight in the slab to overcome the friction of that weak layer, so it didn't avalanche. So basically, again, it just wasn't steep enough. But if you jump on a similar slope with say a 37-degree pitch, then you're going to see an avalanche, and the whole slab is going to come down. So another really good indicator that you've got an unstable snowpack is shooting cracks. And along with that shooting crack, you're going to hear a whoomph. And what's happening with that whoomph is the air is being pushed out from underneath in the on the weak layer, and it's a really guttural fight or flight type of inducing sound. It's as deep and earth shaking as you can imagine that it would be if a slab of snow is collapsing a weak layer. Really good sign of an unstable snowpack is that whoomph that you hear. Look for lots of wind. If you've got 1 inch of snow falling and you've got a lot of wind up high in an exposed piece of ground, you're going to see about 10 times the amount of loading on the windward slope, or excuse me, on the leeward slope. So 1 inch loaded with wind is going to be equal about 10 inches. So you can imagine, when you're talking way up high in the above tree line terrain, that you're going to see, feet and meters of snow difference between what you'd see on the scoured side. And you have to remember that the snowpack doesn't like anything happening quickly. It doesn't like anything happening to it, whether it be lots of snow, 1 to 2 inches an hour of snow falling on a snowpack is more than enough to consider something happening to it rapidly. Same with wind. It just doesn't have time to adjust and reach that equilibrium. So if you're seeing 1 to 2 inches an hour, if you're seeing lots of wind, drifting snow, it's probably a good idea to keep your decisions, your terrain decisions, low angle. And then again, it doesn't like anything happening quickly, so it doesn't like really rapid warm temperatures happening. It's just speeding up the deformation of the snowpack, and you're basically going to create avalanche just because it's building its own slab as it settles. So really the point of that is look for things that are happening to it really quickly: wind loading, snow loading, rain, warm temperatures, etc. Okay, so trying to keep this fairly short and concise. We don't expect everybody to be an avalanche forecaster, so we put out different levels of information. We put out, when you go to this website, we come up with what we call tier 1 information. And over the years, we've gone from using science-based forecasts for how well we're conveying our message, to impact-based forecasts. And we're really trending more towards impact-based forecasts. The reason is, when the National Weather Service really looked at what happened during Katrina, their forecasts were their hurricane forecasts were spot on. They nailed when it was going to happen, the timing of it happening, the impacts of the natural disaster, but they didn't necessarily forecast the impacts to the population and to the communities. So what we're trying to, and what they've tried to do since then, is, instead of just high-fiving themselves on a great forecast, we nailed the timing, we nailed everything about the QPFs on the forecast and the wind speeds, but somehow we missed the fact that it was going to have this huge impact on New Orleans, because we didn't get that message out as to what all that really means to them, to those communities. So we're starting to base our forecasts more on impact based, or on impact, so that it does look like, what does 4 inches of water mean to the Wolf Creek area? Are we going to lose Wolf Creek Pass for, say, a week if we shut down the highways? What it means to the backcountry users, what it means to the forest users. So you'll see a lot of that in our tier 1.5 levels. So right now, what we're looking at is really the tier 1 part of the forecast. Yellow is moderate. Moderate means that you can trigger an avalanche. It's possible to trigger an avalanche. Green it's unlikely that you'll trigger an avalanche. Then when we get more into the next tier of forecasts, we start talking about what that means to you. So you can go green, yellow, red, orange, and red. but then when we start talking about what that means, we talk about probabilities and what the probability of a backcountry skier, backcountry user triggering an avalanche. So this is another one of the things that the takeaway messages is we almost there we go. Most avalanche accidents occur in moderate or considerable avalanche danger. What those two mean is moderate is natural avalanches are unlikely, but triggered avalanches, skier triggered, snowmobile triggered avalanches, explosive triggered avalanches, they're possible. So by sheer definition, moderate avalanches, moderate avalanche danger, you can trigger an avalanche. So it's not green light, go, just go send it everywhere you can. When we start getting into considerable avalanche danger, you're probably going to trigger an avalanche if you're out on skis in steep terrain. Triggering an avalanche is likely, and natural avalanches are possible. So again, I really wanted to talk about that moderate and that considerable. Moderate, you might be able to find some safe terrain, and if you really start stepping out, it's very possible that you can trigger an avalanche. And again, in considerable, that's when we expect skier triggers likely. So, and when we get into the tier 2 type of forecasts, we start talking about our avalanche problems, our persistent slab avalanche problems, what that looks like, persistent slab, wind slab, storm slab. In Colorado, our underlying problems are always going to be persistent slab because of that weak layer that forms on that cold, thin snowpack. There's always something going on in the crystal development at in the basal layers that makes it almost always a weak layer in there. When we excuse me, when we start talking about the avalanche rows, and again, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but we have the avalanche rows, and you have that broke into 3 tiers of near tree line or above tree line, near tree line, and below tree line, and then the aspects are highlighted. Northwest, northeast, east, and southeast are all highlighted on this example, and it goes up into from near tree line up to above tree line terrain. Not necessarily saying you're not going to see an avalanche, depending on what danger you're at, on the aspects and elevations that aren't highlighted here, but it's more likely that you're going to trigger or see avalanches on the ones that are highlighted. That's where the avalanches are most likely to occur. Again, then we get into the likelihood of triggered avalanches possible. So we're at moderate avalanche danger here, and small to large avalanche size. And this is more than likely more information than most people really want to look at. If you're a professional guide, or if you're taking a group out into the backcountry, you'll start to dive into this a little bit more. But this is where that tier 2 type of forecast comes into play. And for the most part, most people stick with the green, yellow, and orange and red, the tier 1 information. And then we put a trend into it as well, what you expect for the next day or two. And so that if you're planning a hut trip, or if you're planning something in the backcountry, you know what to expect, and if you expect a significant change. Yeah, not bad. That pretty much wraps up the presentation of it. Again, I whittled that down to really a few things. Know how steep your terrain is, know what the weather's doing. So if you're going to see rapid changes in the snowpack, because it doesn't like anything happening to it. And if you see avalanches, you see other signs of a really weak snowpack, whether it be avalanches on similar terrain as to what you're going to. You're probably dealing with an unstable snowpack. So that's, again, I got it about 50 minutes. So yeah, I'll open it up for questions now, and I'm going to stop sharing, and hopefully I'm still there. Yeah. Oh, again, whittled that down to like nuts and bolts of really basic stuff. So, but if you have more questions about anything, I'm always up on Wolf Creek Pass, and everyone has my cell phone's always open, really. So anyway.
I have probably a dumb question coming from somebody who lives in Kansas most of the year. When you make your forecast, is it based like on just the amount of snow that's fallen, or is it like observations of stuff that you're seeing as you're like traveling the route? Or I mean, what all goes into the deciding it's this level or that level?
All that. So depending on who you're talking about, whether it be the backcountry forecasters or the highway forecasters. For me, I really stick to the aspects and elevations that are going to impact the highways, for the paths that impact the highways. So I spend a lot of time on 160 or on Wolf Creek Pass looking at the snowpack structure from October all the way to the end of April, looking at snow depths, where the weak layers are forming. Like we had a really dry spell in December that ended on January 4th. So we refer to that transition as the January 4th layer. And we're all of us, whether it be the backcountry or the highway, people are digging in the snow, looking at that interface everywhere we go, and seeing how it's reacting to each new load, whether it be 2 or 3 inches or 2 or 3 inches of water. So, and you'll hear me speak a lot in terms of water, because it's, a foot of snow could be 4% snow and very little water, very little impact to the snowpack, or a foot of snow could be, close to 1.5 inches of water and have really large and significant impacts on the snowpack and the weight. So I typically tend to refer to more the SWE, the snow water equivalency of the snow. So for us, 3 to 4 inches isn't 3 to 4 inches of snow, it's 3 to 4 inches of water, which could be anywhere between 3 to 5 feet of snow. And that's a decent storm for us, where I'd probably shut the pass down to shoot. No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt, there's a question in the chat there. I don't know if you saw that. Dave Jones is asking about the snow shed on the west side of Wolf Creek Pass. Maybe you can tell us what that's all about.
The snow shed on the west side of Wolf Creek Pass?
Yes.
Or
well, not I said snow shed. I apologize. He just said the little shed down the west side of the pass.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's the so the snow shed, the actual snow shed is a structure that it's a passive deflection going from Alberta's, and that's on the east side.
Right.
The little snow shed, or the little shed on the west side, what is it, above the 725 road, that is where we have the gun. That's where we keep the 105. And if I didn't see the question, but if it's, you know, the cinder block to the south side of the highway, inside there we have the 105, the howitzer. It's I'll say it for my own, to make the ATF happy. Inside there, it's just a piece of metal, because the breech block, nothing's actually in it. There's no ammunition. There's no explosives. It's like the way we store it is be like taking you saw the barrel, but
The breech.
the breech, yeah, it's just a big hunk of metal where it sits there. We keep the ammunition in magazines across the state, and same with the breech. So, but the reason we can shoot with limited visibility is because that gun's always there. All we have to do is open the bay door and lower it down and set our azimuth and elevation and start flinging rounds out. So again, where I have a ton of respect for the guys on Wolf Creek, the gun crew there. We can put about 16 rounds out in less than 30 minutes out the barrel of that thing, and have as long as we don't have big road hits and have the road cleaned up within a couple of hours, which is in the world of mitigation and control work, that's just unheard of to be able to have that sort of efficiency. So again, ton of respect for the gun crews and the CDOT plow drivers that it's a huge really well choreographed dance between the plow drivers and the gun crew. We don't want to keep that road closed for very long. You know, when you start talking about when we're shooting, we're probably looking at 3, 2, 3, up to 5 inches an hour. So if we have it shut down for 2 hours during the height of the storm, you know, it's not unheard of to have to go through and push 10, 12 inches of snow off of the road and that's just while we close. And as a plow driver, you know, once you lose it, it's really, really hard to get it back. So we really try to keep our impacts to the road very low. So we shoot fairly frequently. We keep the volume out of the avalanche paths down, and hopefully don't have big avalanche paths hitting the highway.
Yeah, that's perfect. You literally just touched on what I was going to ask you to, and that's oftentimes as a plow driver, people would say, "Well, you guys don't, when you shoot, these things never hit the road." Why don't you speak to that?
Exactly. It is this. It's this fine balance of, okay, do we have enough to really, really clean it out, really clean the avalanche path out, and did we wait too long? Are we going to have debris and trees and have to keep the highway closed for a few days while we clean up the big debris on the path on the highway? So it's really, we do our best to choreograph that with Mother Nature. Sometimes she smacks us around. A lot of times she smacks us around, but no.
Hey, so there's a good question. Well, a couple of questions in there now. Do you ever do preemptive closures, or do you wait until you see actual storm impacts? Thanks, Matt. The other Matt.
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on what we're seeing. We will do preemptive closures. Say like last year, at the end of the cycle, or at the end of the last storm cycle, March 20-ish, somewhere around in there. We worked it out with Davey that we would close, say at 8 o'clock at night, so that we could get the ski area traffic over off of the hill. We could get all the postal service, all the big rigs up and over the highways, and then still close it without posing too much hazard to the travelers. But again, that's really, really intensely choreographed between Davey Pitcher, the owner of the Wolf Creek Ski Area, all the different players that are in that use the Wolf Creek corridor. You know, if we don't have to close it, or if we don't think we need to close it, the last thing I want to do is interrupt traffic. But I also don't want to wait till too late in the storm to where it's always the Cheetos trucks. It's always the Cheetos trucks. They don't have any weight. And no matter if they're chained up or not, you know, they're going to spin out. And unfortunately, once one truck spins out, you know, it plugs traffic up, and they might be plugged underneath a safe spot, but the line of traffic that stops behind them might not be. So we really try to keep traffic moving. And if we see an issue, if there's going to be an issue, we try to close it down or implement the chain law before that happens. Well, it's Cheetos trucks. God.
Certainly a delicate balance there, isn't it?
It is. It's
Yeah,
really
Matt, let's go to one more question in the chat here, and then I think we'll have to wrap up. We're hitting 6 o'clock here in just a minute. So Scott said you mentioned that Cumbres and La Manga don't take nearly as much of your time. Is that due to those passes being flatter, shorter, or less snowfall?
Yeah. Less, you know, shorter for sure. The paths are less, you know, Cumbres and La Manga doesn't have paths that I can't see the start zones for, so I can get up into the start zones really quickly and easily. Most of the paths are on Cumbres, La Manga, and Slum are you know, pretty big cut banks. So if we have issues on those, we can use case charges, smaller types of explosives to bring those down. And in the case of Cumbres La Manga, it's really easy to close that road down with very little impacts to the public. Those guys, they really don't. It's not a huge statewide impact. It's not you know, you're not seeing all the trucks going over there. It's not a huge economic impact on the state if we close that road down. Slum Gullion, with the exception of Turkey Foot, which is a path that is closer on the Lake City side, their paths are fairly small, and you can almost control those or mitigate those with heavy equipment, the blowers, the loaders, going in there and triggering them, keeping the maintenance paths done. There's one in there, Turkey Foot, that we use explosives on, but it hasn't ran in 2019, in the March 2019 cycle, the one that buried the Lake City Sheriff, his house, or destroyed the Lake City Sheriff's house. Turkey Foot put about 20 feet of snow on 149 and closed the road. Mm-hmm. But that's a pretty exceptional cycle.
Wow. Okay. Thanks. Yeah, and then you get the crazy passes like Red Mountain, Loveland, Berthoud, you know, that are constantly pitching snow at the highway. So, all right. Well, I think I'd like to pass it over to Kelly to let us know who was our door prize winner this evening, and then we can wrap this thing up.
Well, Wyatt won this time round. So Wyatt, if you'll put your address in the chat to me, I'll send out your door prize here. And other than that, I mean, maybe just remind everybody that since we recorded it, we put our Forest Specialist Series events on YouTube in case people miss it or want to go back and look at it again. So just be watching for that too in the next couple of days. And that's really it for me.
Well, cool. Matt, any last words, avalanche safety wise, to wrap up?
No, not really. Use our products, use the forecast products if you have any questions.
See, so you really did have last words.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, you
You,
guys. I appreciate it.
you know, I can't stress that enough, you guys. I mean, the reason why I'm very adamant about having somebody from CAIC come on is because it's very important to me. I've had people that I know caught in avalanches. Thankfully, I've not had folks pass away from that, but we had an incident over here on the Rio last year that we did lose somebody. So my goal is to keep everybody coming home safe at night. So yeah, let's use those resources that Matt offered. And if you don't know where they are, you can reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with the right people. Matt, thank you again. We sure appreciate you coming on your third time now. I guess I was corrected. Yeah. And you know what? I'm probably going to be calling you again next year. So um, we will look forward to having you here. And again, on behalf of the Rio Grande National Forest and the San Juan Mountains Association, thank you everybody for joining us. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.